introduction, I'd like to go around the room in case you haven't had the opportunity to meet everybody yet. Immediately to your right is Mrs. Kim Stillwell, who serves as president of the school board. Mr. Tom Hilton, Mr. Emmanuel Wilkerson, Mrs. Polly Leanne, Mr. Kurt Heigl, and Mrs. Katina Bearden. Those are the board members, okay? In addition, you've been introduced to Mr. Rodriguez, who is our acting district superintendent, Mrs. Adams, who is our business manager, and Dr. Dina Salini, who is our director of human resources. I introduced myself out in the hall. My name is Stephen Kalis, and I serve as solicitor for the board. Okay? So if you have no clarifying questions before we get started, I'm happy to move forward with the questions that we have this evening. Okay? And by the way, Mrs. Bush, every board member has received your letter of interest and has an extra copy in front of them.
Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Bush, would you please tell us why you've submitted your letter of interest for the position as a school board director, and please give us some brief highlights.
The reason I submitted my letter is I worked in education for the last 8 years in various school districts and/or the Chester County IU. And being of that, I have a special needs child who is autistic, and I've been an advocate for his education since the age of 3, when he was part of the MHIDD at the time in Chester County. And I'm a person who advocates for my family, not only for my son, but for my husband, who's a disabled veteran. So I think it's very important to be an advocate in education to make sure that children get what they need, and also advocate for the teachers so they have access to resources for the children, whether they're special needs or regular education children. I also have a 5-year-old daughter who's a regular ed student. Let's see. During my tenure in education, I've worked in many different departments, technology. So I've helped deploy different things in technology, giving resources to teachers, trainings and different things like that. And I really feel that within the realm of education, that it's very important to be transparent and authentic. Because being transparent, you gain trust between teachers and between parents and different people you work with. And gaining that trust is important when you're working with others to go to the next level, to create new programs and different things like that. So that's a little bit why I applied. I'm new to the Pottstown School District. I'm from Chester County in the Phoenix-Tulare School District for 10 years. And when I got my master's, I never knew what I really wanted to do with my master's. So I've always wanted to do the board and run for board. And so when I moved here, I kind of just sat back and was looking at different programs. My daughter's at Rupert, and when the thing came about, I said to my husband, this is what I want to do. And so when it came out, I just wrote my letter and said, okay, this is the next step. I think this is the next step to do, and I submitted my letter. So I think that's why I submitted my letter to Pottstown.
Okay. Actually, following up on a comment that you just mentioned a moment ago, would you please explain to the board how long you've lived within the jurisdictional limits of the Pottstown School District, and since moving into this area, how long or in what ways you've been involved with the district?
I moved here right before September 1st, the beginning of school. My daughter started.
Of 2016.
Yeah, 2016, I'm sorry. I've already become very involved, both me, my husband, and myself. Actually went on a field trip last week with my daughter's kindergarten class, and her teacher's actually right over there, Ms. Cresco. We went to the orchard, and I was paired with some students in the classroom, and I was able to intricately be involved. I'm sorry, my hair is more. I was paired with students and was intricately involved with students of all realms, and I found out that the classroom my daughter's in is an inclusion classroom. So it was kids from all different learning environments, and I have a passion for kids that have different disabilities because of my son and because of my background. So it was great to see how the kids all interact with one another, being that my daughter comes from regular education, but how she interacts with kids of different disabilities and all kind of things like that. My husband's been involved in the school too. He's done the volunteer book fair this week. He goes back tomorrow. So we've kind of jumped full into the district. We went to the fundraiser last night at McDonald's. My daughter can't wait to do the pancake breakfast at the high school. So I think we've jumped full-fledged into the district as soon as we moved here to do various different things.
Next question is two parts. What experience do you have in serving on any other organizations or boards? And how would you characterize your relationship with the leadership of that organization? For example, its board president or executive director.
So the kind of boards I've served on would be nonprofit in a church. I was a member of Paley United Methodist for many, many years. And actually I served on the finance committee. I was the treasurer of the church. I believe you can see that on my LinkedIn page. Serving on that, your executive director would be the pastor of the church, technically. And the dynamics of it was great. I was actually the only female for a very long time, and I had never dealt with money per se in any kind of way. But using QuickBooks is kind of like you teach yourself and you continue on. And it gave me insight, and it was more of like a working relationship and learning through just a collaborative effort. And so that's the kind of committees I've been on. And when I was younger, I was on youth committees at church and various things like that. So I've been on many committees, not necessarily in the realm of public education and public sector like that, but more of like a church or a community like that.
Mrs. Bush, could you give two experiences where you placed your personal desires aside and acted in favor of the greater good of the organization?
Two experiences. That's two experiences?
Two.
Okay.
Or I'll rephrase the question if it's helpful and say an experience or up to two.
This is very thought-provoking, so I want to make sure I get it as authentic as could be. So an experience where putting personal favor aside, can you just rephrase it one more time?
Absolutely. Could you give two experiences where you have placed your personal desires aside and acted in favor of the greater good of the organization?
I'm not sure if I've ever been placed in a position to act in a way where I can give an answer authentically or transparently, so I'm not going to make something up because that's not me. Many times I think we're placed in positions where your personal experiences are at the forefront of all of our minds, but I don't think I've ever been put in that actual respect. I've always been in positions where I'm acting as a parent, more or less, for children to get them what they need, but I can't say that I'm going to give an answer that's fake. So I will be honest, I'm not going to give a fake answer when I can't.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Bush, a director here in the Pottstown School District must be committed to at least 2 meetings a month and serve on various subcommittees that may require additional commitments or meetings. Will you be able to work this into your current schedule with some flexibility?
Absolutely. My family's already had discussions around when you meet monthly. I printed out the board, I think it's the board meeting book, looking at different kind of things like that and the activities that the board entails. And actually, I'm fortunate enough to have a mother-in-law who lives with me, who's able to help with childcare and things like that. So, and the way my husband's work schedule is, I would be able to commit to the time that's required for a director of the school board.
Mrs. Bush, what do you consider to be the most pressing issue in education today? And that can be as it relates to the Pottstown School District or public education generally.
Okay. To be honest, the most pressing issue is funding for school districts in general. Funding in that relates to access to resources. You see many school districts just on the news today saying they have a surplus of funds, but then you see other school districts that need funds. So the way money is distributed from Harrisburg or however the federal government, there are districts, and I'm going to use Pottstown as an example, that need access to funds to have the kids have the resources, maybe smaller class sizes, maybe access to special ed resources or ESL or whatever it be. But I believe it's the funding so that the kids can have more access to whether it's one-on-one technology to help them succeed. I think it's funding for districts.
In your opinion, what is the responsibility of a school director?
I think a director in the school board, the responsibility is to be accountable to the constituents and the people in the public sector, all the people that live within the community. I think we have to advocate for what people are coming to us with. Sometimes it might spark communication between each other. So whether it's you're communicating with them and they tell you, hey, we want a new football field. I was trying to read up on the field issue. Whether it means you going out there and you talking to them with it, and then you advocate for their needs, you're a problem solver. You have to obviously be team-oriented. I'm a big person of transparent and authenticity and being authentic, because of past experiences in districts I lived in where boards were not transparent, where they would do things behind closed doors or in meetings and then come out the next day and publish different things for the employees and or community to see.
Okay. And Mrs. Bush, last question. What special quality can you provide to the Board of School Directors here at the Pottstown School District?
I'm a very eccentric person, and I don't want you to take that in a bad way. I am a very hyper, exciting type of person, and I have a lot of drive behind me. A lot of my qualities entail, like, I not necessarily will jump on a bandwagon, but I'm a person that will never come up with a solution to a problem unless I've thoroughly researched what's behind it. But once I've thoroughly researched it and collaborated with all the team, I'm like out there jumping and try to rally troops to get things going. And that's what I think makes me eccentric. When I'm at work, the people go, oh my gosh, you weren't here today, it was so boring. Yesterday was and I'll just side note, yesterday was a in-service day at Springford, and it was 2 o'clock, everyone was like in their meetings and stuff, except for us secretaries with office. I'm like, dance party time, because we had to get out. It was so like dull and everyone wanted. So today we had a fire drill at 2 o'clock, and the girls all came back in, they're like, yesterday at 2 o'clock was so much better at dance party time than the fire drill. So just little things like that, like I just rally troops to get everyone, as a team to say, hey guys, don't get down and discouraged, we can do this, because I know sometimes you're in a meeting and you get really down and discouraged about things, but there's always a brighter side to everything. And I know there'll be debating and things like that, but I've been in times with my son where I'm like, oh man, I'll never get this done. He needs this for his IUP, but as a team, we're sitting around the table for hours. But it's all about talking it through and collaborating to get to the end result. And really, it's the child that the child and the teachers that we're focused on to help, get what they need. So I think that's the quality I have.
Okay. Mrs. Bush, thank you. Before I ask Mrs. Bush to provide, to pose any questions that she may have or offer any final comments or further clarification, are there any questions that any of the board members may have, or is there any area that Mrs. Bush touched upon that you would like to clarify? Mr. Wilkerson?
Yes, I love your enthusiasm for championing education. I just want to know what made you pick Pottstown as your home, and what about us do you really know about this community? If that's a fair question.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So my husband and I, we've been looking for a home for a very long time. And of course, everyone has budgets when you look for homes. And we've been living in a 900 square foot row home for 10 years with 5 people. So we were looking for something, a single family home that's going to feel like home. And like I said, my husband's a disabled vet, and he needs somewhere where he can feel safe and feel like, we can actually have like a family in a home that's safe. So as we're looking at homes, we went in 1 million homes across the Montgomery County, Chester County area. And as soon as we walked in the home at 2 Park Court where I live, it was like, this is the house where we're going to live. And honestly, I didn't know what school district it was. We didn't even look at that. We went in, and I'm a Chester County born and raised girl. Well, actually, I shouldn't say born and raised. I was born in the South. But I did my whole education through Great Valley School District. So when we walked in the house, we're like, this is the house. So we're in the house, and we honestly wanted our daughter to go to Renaissance. And I talked to Mr. Rodriguez. I'm not sure if you remember the conversation I had. And Renaissance does not bus there. So we were like, well, she's going to go to Rupert then. And Rupert has been the most amazing school for our daughter. From the time we walked in the first day I dropped her off, Mr. Moyer, I can't say how engaging and how amazing the man has been to those students every day that my husband drops her off, and I've gone there several times. And from the first day I met Mrs. Gresco, it was amazing, the love I see. And I mean, I work in a school, but the connection they have with kids over there is just completely unremarkable. I mean, it is. It's just amazing. And so my son does not go to school here. I will tell you that. He goes to a special ed school in Coatesville because of his needs right now. But I have to say, like, the Pottstown community alone, like just going down High Street all the time and seeing all the communication and interactions between people and just everything, it is completely different than where I came from. And I have to say, like, we have truly fallen in love with it. The McDonald's night last night, it was amazing. The secretary was there. The teachers were there. They were all interacting with people. Like, Phoenixville, I can't tell you when they had that for my son when he was at Schuylkill. I never went to a night like that where they had the teacher blowing up balloons and, you know, teachers running around eating ice cream with the kids. It is just a completely different atmosphere. And I even said it's like a family. And I even said that at work today. I was like, it's like a family at the McDonald's last night. It was amazing. And just all the things they have, I just hope it continues. You know, the family type atmosphere. So that's why. And we fell in love with the house, and everything has just fallen into place as far as the community around it.
Thank you, Mrs. Bush. Are there any other board members have any questions?
Just
Mr.
to,
Huddle?
you know, do you own the house or are you renting the house?
We rent right now, and then actually the house will go to settlement next Friday.
So
This coming Friday.
You will be a homeowner in Pottstown
Yes, sir.
and paying
Yes.
Pottstown taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Mrs. Wayne.
Okay. Our school district is both socially and economically diverse. How would you close the gap between these levels of diversity to keep all families feeling welcome to come into the schools?
Okay, say it one more time.
Okay. Our school district is both socially and economically diverse. How would you close the gap between these levels of diversity to help all families feel welcome, open, and excited to work together?
So I love diversity. A little bit about me. My husband's African American, and my children are both biracial children. So I feel like I can connect both with any type of diversity out there. And to me, socially and economically diverse people, it brings you to a whole nother level of connection, because coming together and being able to work together is something that I don't even see. Maybe because I am in a different kind of relationship, and right now my husband is unemployed. So I don't see any of this because my life is, I guess, I'm not jaded by it at the moment. I just see that we're people, and people deserve to be treated just like everyone else, regardless of skin, regardless of social, economic status. I don't see anything.
But my question is, how would you accomplish this?
Right,
You have these, you know.
Right. I think you have to do education. It's all about educating everyone about it. I mean, there's so many people that aren't educated about it. You see on the news and things like that. So for me and my family, we educate our children every day. You know, at church service the other day, the pastor had a sermon on this, at how, like, I might have to teach my children that with the way they drive their car is going to be different the way I have to drive my car, because I am Caucasian. But I think it's about educating our children a different way. And I don't know if that means that in history class now that we have to do another curriculum for the children so they understand. And I have to say, for me, when I went on my daughter's field trip, Mrs. Gresko, I think, left, but when I was on my daughter's field trip and they saw me with my daughter, they're like, "Are you sure you're Delaney's mom?" Yes, I am Delaney's mom. So right there in kindergarten, they don't understand why an African-American child that looks more African-American has a Caucasian mom. So right there in kindergarten, it looks like we need to start teaching about, you know, the diversity in families that can be at such a young age. So it is education and maybe being really collaborative and creating this. I don't know if there's textbooks out there. To me, you don't need textbooks. It's just conversations you have with people about this. Because I'm passionate about it, because it happens in my own family, with my husband, with my kids, and my son being 14, it's happening with him at his school he's at now. So we constantly have conversations on this.
Thank you.
Any other board members have any other questions right now? No? Mr. Wilkerson?
Yes, my final
one more
question. I love the passion you have for educating and understand it, but you mentioned Springford, Great Valley, and Phoenixville. We're not those schools. Those schools don't face what we do. Right now, we're in the search of finding a new superintendent. We are socially disadvantaged. There's a lot of problems we go through here, and as a recent graduate, I can tell you firsthand as a student what are the problems we face, but how do you as a board member, I know you talked about the fields earlier and all the problems we're facing, how do you make those proper decisions of make sure we're giving the best education but also protecting the tax base here in this town? And it's not a Springford tax base, it's not a Great Valley tax base, and it's definitely not a Phoenixville tax base. How do you protect those taxpayers, those elderly people, and the people that put you in your position, but also guaranteeing a great education for the future taxpayers?
I think myself, I need to become educated about the community here, whether it be through research or whether it be through learning the community by getting out there more to the different local organizations. I just saw the Pottstown Training and Rehabilitation Center. I'd love to go in there, learn about what they do for the community, you know, learn about different organizations that provide for the community so that I can know what goes on. And I will say one of my past jobs was in Coatesville at the Chester County IU. There's a special ed school out there, so it serves Coatesville and different districts that aren't economically and so much socially, you know, up there with tax base and things like that. So I do feel like given time, you know, to go out there and use the time I have to research and communicate and start building those relationships, I would be able to provide the necessary needs that the board would want me to do, or the community, I should say.
Mrs. Bush, thank you very much.
Thank you
on
so
behalf of
much.
the board for submitting
Yes.
your letter of interest. Do you have any questions for the board, any comments, or do you wish to clarify any of the responses that you provided this evening?
I don't. I'm just passionate. I'm just a passionate type of person. This is me. This is how I am at home. We have conversations like this all the time. So yeah, no. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so very much.